Joining me now to discuss is Republican Senate nominee for Arizona, Kari Lake. Good to see you, lady. You and I both made our living under the First Amendment back when we were both doing news. That only protects, free speech, the First Amendment, but also the freedom of the press. And here comes Tim Awals, says there's no, quote, guarantee to free speech. He's from the same party that denied a choice in the primary and then denied their own voters a voice in Kamala's coronation. Isn't it the Democrat Party that represents the biggest threat to our republic, our freedoms, and democratic principles?
Absolutely. They've become the tyrants our founding fathers warned us about. Maybe somebody needs to remind Tim Pon about the First Amendment and maybe show him the Constitution. And yes, I was a trained journalist, a fair and honest journalist for 30 years. And so it's really shocking to me to see so many people in the news media who seem to be okay with this, who aren't fighting back, who aren't pushing back. I mean, we just saw here in the story is breaking right now in Maricopa County in the town of Surprise, where a woman was criticizing the mayor of the town, was detained and pulled out of the meeting by a police officer. In Maricopa County at the Board of Supervisors meetings, they're no longer allowing public comment because these elected officials don't want to be criticized. Now, we should see the media stepping up and covering this ad nauseum and saying this is outrageous. These are elected officials. We should be able to criticize them. It's our duty to criticize them when they do something wrong. But the media has gone radio silent. All you hear are crickets from them.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, a Washington Post reporter a couple of weeks ago suggested that the government could do something to suppress free speech of President Trump and Elon Musk. It was crazy. Kari, today marks 3 years since Joe Biden and Kamala Harris teamed up to deliver the worst foreign policy defeat for the United States in the modern era, the catastrophic withdrawal from Afghanistan. Earlier this morning, Trump visited Arlington National Cemetery, honoring the lives of the 13 service members who died in the Kabul airport bombing. Meanwhile, Harris has nothing on her schedule, and she was a no-show. And Joe Biden on yet another vacation. Other than our common humanity, and even that's in question at times considering Democrats' actions, I find little in common with these people. How about you?
I agree with you 100%. I mean, I just got a lump in my throat looking at that video of President Trump, a true leader. Our commander-in-chief should be honoring the lives of these men and women. And, I guess I understand why Joe Biden's not there. He caused their death. His recklessness, his disastrous foreign policy caused the deaths of these young men and women, these heroic men and women that you're seeing on the screen. And he didn't even have the courage to say their names. I remember him looking at his watch as caskets were rolling by him. It's just despicable. And this is why the people are going to reject Kamala Harris. They're going to reject her at the ballot box. And this is why the fake news media, truly the enemy of the people, are out there trying to roll out an extreme makeover on the most unpopular person to ever enter politics, Kamala Harris. They're trying to now all of a sudden turn her into the most popular, superstar in politics, and the people can't stand her because of policies like you just mentioned that caused the deaths of some of our heroes. So it's going to be interesting going into this election. The people are really going to have to narrow down where they're getting their information and keep all of the fake news from their sites, because we got to focus on the next 2.5 months to get out there, get people registered to vote, because the fake news media is working overtime to try to help Kamala Harris. And if we allow that to happen, we're going to end up with not only more disastrous foreign policies, disastrous domestic policies, but we will plunge into 1,000 years of darkness, as you stated earlier.
Yeah, and she said she was the last person in the room in the planning of the worst foreign policy defeat for the United States in the modern era. She claimed it, not me. Meantime, disturbing reports from the border. DHS Inspector General revealing that under Harris and Biden, 320,000 illegal alien children have just gone missing. The report adding that many of them have been lost, likely sold into sex trafficking or child labor and other atrocities. Unsurprisingly, there's no outrage from the left or the so-called news organizations out there. As a former journalist and an aspiring conservative elected official, what's your message to the biased press and to those Democrats who did this to those kids?
I would just say shame. Shame on you for not covering this. 325,000. The press, remember, when President Trump, during his first term, was when adults were coming over with children, he was doing DNA testing to make sure that the adults were who they were saying they were, because adults would bring over armfuls of children, 6, 7, 8, 10 children, and say they're my kids or my nieces or nephews. And President Trump understood what was going on. That's why he said, we're going to make sure that these kids and these adults get DNA tested, because we want to make sure that they are who they say they are. And to think about that many kids coming over the border and ending up in the most horrific circumstances. I was with President Trump on Friday. He was here in Arizona for the rally, and he talked about these missing kids, and he said that he believes many of them are indeed in the sex trade or dead. And that is, Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, my opponent, Ruben Gallego, who's voted 100% in line with those two, and has supported this open border, supported this child trafficking. They have blood on their hands for the lives of these young children.
Yep. To all you Democrats and those complicit in our government, I would just say that God's children are not for sale. And I'm with you, Kari. Shame on everybody who's been facilitating this. Shame. And shame on all those media outlets who are refusing to report on it because it'll reflect badly on Democrats. I've got to get you to weigh in on RFK Jr.
I think there's something happening here. I think there's something happening. I was watching a report from a reporter outside of the Trump rally, and the reporter was reporting live on the street there, and you just heard the throngs of people that were standing around near the Trump event, and they were shouting liar, 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 liar to the media. The public is on to the fake news media. The public knows that they've been lying to us for decades, especially in hyper overdrive over the past 8 years. And it was really a sight to behold, and you could hear it. And the reporter kind of got frazzled. And the anchor back at the studio quickly tried to wrap the reporter up because they couldn't bear the sound of the public reacting and turning on the media and just shouting down the reporter with the chant, liar, liar, liar.
Yeah, you folks in the biased press, you have only yourselves to blame. You're the ones who broke trust and broke faith with the American people. Kari Lake, thank you very much. Good luck in your race. Keep us posted on how that's going out there. Straight